permanently damaging his arm. And Mary has a lot to do, and he's just a little bit more prominent in the books. So I do hold those books in high regard, and I like Mary. He's kind of cool.
Thank you.
But yeah, unfortunately, that was just another way that I was just having fun with Elijah. Elijah's a beautiful guy. One of the more beautiful things about Elijah is he just takes you on your word. That's his thing. So it just happened out of nowhere. You were always improvising as an actor, and we were on stage, Billy and I, we all were waiting for a shot to happen. And Elijah came over, and I just was like messing with Billy, and I was like, "Take your arm," and Billy was like, "Take your arm," and Elijah was like, "What are we doing?" And I said, "Oh, we're playing Tig," and Elijah was like, "Okay, Tig," and I was like, "No, Tig it, you have to Tig it, tag it." He's like, "How do I become a tagger?" I'm like, "Well, you have to wait until you've been tagged, and then you have to take that person back, and it's a double tag." It just went on, and Elijah's like, you could almost see like a notebook out. So then it became this elaborate thing, and then like Billy said, a couple of weeks later, he came over and he was like, "How come we don't play Tig anymore?" Because we just made up the game. And then, I'm big on making up games. I made up a game called Cup, which is basically just keeping a paper cup in the air. Very sophisticated game. I used to play that with Bernard Hill quite a lot. And then there's another game that I came up with called Nudge. I'm big on games, it's kind of my thing. I love playing games. I'm more than a little competitive. It keeps me in a place of play, literally, if I'm doing games, So that's how that came about. And Elijah now, still, as with friends, would be like, let's play Tig. For me, it's probably like, obviously Star Wars is the reason I became an actor, but my experience on Star Wars, even though it was special, and, it's JJ, he's a friend of mine, and got a chance to hang out with Chewie and R2 and C-3PO and stuff. My experience on Star Wars was probably like 12 weeks, like all in all. And that was like going off and having breaks and coming back and stuff. So it was extraordinary, and I loved it. But it's hard to compare that with, the principal photography of almost 2 years and then going back every year for months at a time. So, of course, both those films are super important in my life, but the immersion of Lord of the Rings is just a little bit more significant. Yeah, it was a wild ride, I met JJ, it was like 3 days before the Oscars when Return of the King kind of did that clean sweep thing, and I met JJ, and if you look at my nails when I'm at the Oscars, I had got my nail beds painted black because I thought it looked kind of rad. I called it like a reverse French nail polish. Okay. And when I met JJ like 2 days before the Oscars, and he saw my nails, and he was like, "Keep those, we'll use those in Lost." And we actually do use those in Lost. And that was just me, just for the Oscars. I was like, I want to get something cool going on with my nails. So life was imitating art very much. At the time, I was probably playing my life pretty fast and loose, certainly faster and looser. So I was probably a little bit more kind of, staying up late and, being probably a little bit more of a rock star of sorts. So they probably saw that a little bit. When I first met JJ for The Lost, there was no Charlie. They wanted me initially to read for Sawyer because all the men were reading for Sawyer. Wow. Yeah, it's like a generic thing. They have a male role and they have a female role, and when I finished meeting JJ, I was like, "Do you want me to read this scene?" And JJ's like, "Nah, no bother. There's no way that we're going to have you play Sawyer. We're going to create a different role." And I was like, "Okay." And I came back 2 weeks later, and they created Charlie. He was my age, he looked like me, he acted like me. And when we did the screen test, normally at screen test it's 2 actors, so there was 2 Jacks, 2 Kates. Colby Smulders was testing for I'm a tribute for you. 2 Boons, 2 Hurleys, 2 Sawyers. There's only 1 Charlie, it was me. I saw JJ walking down the corridor, and I was like, "There's only 1 Charlie?" And he went, "Yeah, man, Guys off having adventures. Jack and Sawyer and Locke and Kate and Hurley are all off having adventures, and I'm just on the beach holding a baby, which is beautiful. I love kids, don't get me wrong. But I was like, yeah, come on, this was supposed to be like Charlie had some stories too. So Damon then said to me, "I think we found a way to write a great storyline for you, but it means that you're going to leave at the end of season 3. And I was like, great, this is going to be my best crack of the whip that I'm going to get, because other members of the cast, they might kill 4 of them in 1 episode or something like that. So I was like, okay,
let's do it, I'll take it. They started to preempt this, you know, you're gonna die, Charlie. And it kept coming and kept coming and kept coming, and then, you know, we filmed the sequence for the end. I love Walter. Walter's always been like really kind and nice to me. You know, I scuba dive, I surf, all this kind of stuff. So I felt very nurtured and took care of in the water, which allowed me to be vulnerable and do that scene. And it's consistently talked about as being, you know, one of the saddest deaths in TV, and I'm super proud of it, and I think it was a great show.
Did it break our hearts?
Thanks, dude. Fellowship, and I think one of the abiding kind of positive aspects of Merry's personality is he's really there for his guys. You know, his guys obviously had been Frodo and Sam. They're his cousins, they're his family, they're his bros. He's there for them. He wants them to have a good time, he wants them to be taken care of. Clearly he wants them to be safe. When it gets to a point where things are actually physically dangerous for them, it's concerning for Merry. But ultimately, I think Merry kind of looks around and he's like, these guys have, you know, a flag and a veil and some nice food to eat, and everyone's happy and smiling. I'm in my element, and there's a few moments in Fellowship, you know, before it gets really hectic, where you can just see Merry being like, great, these guys are okay, you know, we're safe, we're at the Prancing Pony, we got here, we're out of the rain, it's warm, you know, we're having a pint, and that's a great thing. And I think, again, because I have a tattoo that says life imitates art, you know, which I believe it does. I felt the same way on set, you know, I just felt that kind of protective thing about specifically Elijah, Sean, and Billy. We were together a lot, certainly for the first film. Elijah was exhausted, he had a lot to do, there was a lot of pressure. You know, Sean did not physically feel great, he had to be a lot bigger than he was comfortable with. And, you know, Billy and I were reading each other's minds at that point. So I just kind of felt like, as long as everyone's having a good day, I would look around and be like, are you good, are you good, are you good? Okay, we're good. And that kind of felt like a crossover between Dom and Merry. So that's when it kind of locked in for me.
That's awesome.
Next day sequence with the Barrow Downs, where, you know, obviously the Hobbits find themselves in harm's way, which would obviously have been a really great thing. The character of Tom Bombadil is not included in the films. It kind of makes sense. I mean, look, when the Hobbits end up with Tom Bombadil, they're there for a long time, months and months pass, where they're in safety. And you simply can't do that in a film. You need things to keep moving. Otherwise, as an audience member, you just go, well, they're fine. They're just, you know, picking daisies and eating cheese and drinking beer. Why are we watching this? It's nonsense. You need them to be in peril. So I understood why Tom Bombadil was not included, but he is a fascinating character. The fact that he's like, look, you know, wars come and go, and I'm here, and the forest is safe, and I'm cool. It's a little bit like Treebeard in that regard. I think if someone had asked me who played Tom Bombadil if he was included, and I was like, Mark Rylance would be an amazing Tom Bombadil, you know. He has that kind of like whimsy to him, you know, slightly absent-minded type vibes. So that, and then obviously we've talked about it ad nauseum, but like the Scouring of the Shire would be legitimately epic. You know, you've got Merry and Pippin coming back, having learned what it means to be in a war and, you know, organize things, and they start to organize things, and Frodo and Sam pick up the speed with them, and they, you know, rouse Saruman and his bad guys out of the Shire and clean it up, you know, and unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but the way that they dealt with Saruman in the film was completely different, so it's difficult to see that. You do see Merry, Pippin, Frodo and Sam kind of coming back into the Shire in their warrior regalia, so it's a little nod towards it, but of course that would have been a great thing to see. Great question. Because I think that's the thing that we go through in life, that's the things that you take ultimately, right? I mean, the memories that you make, and it's usually with other humans, you know, so certainly on Rings, it's the friendships that you make, because they're tied up in your memories, so these relationships moving forward with the Fellowship and with certain crew members, and, you know, obviously with Pete and his family and stuff like that. And then what was it, the hardest thing, the toughest thing?
The worst part.
The worst part? I had a really great time on those movies. The worst part? I don't know, we had one day off a week, you know? So you used to like 2 days off a week normally.
Right.
So one day off a week we worked Saturday, and then we would usually go out for dinner
Saturday night, and then you wake up Sunday, and you have to do the laundry, and you have to pull your week's work and see what you've got, and then you have to tidy your house because it's an absolute mess because you've just been sleeping in it and letting it go to ruin all week. And just the free time was so short, you know, and then boom, you get picked up at 5:15 on a Monday morning. So I think probably just the lack of any free time was the most challenging. But I love that job. It was super.
Great question.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think I've been talking to Billy about doing a podcast for a couple of years, and you know, Billy just was not as well versed on podcasts as I was, so it took a while for him to get there. But I started to kind of say to him, you know, it's just the two of us just sat around for an hour, just having a conversation. Doesn't really matter where it goes, and we'll have fun with it, and it'll be great. And very quickly, you know, Billy picked it up. The Dis thing, which was the Dom Isolation show, which I did during COVID, was really fun for me. But you know, honestly, it was helpful for me too. You know, I live on my own. I have a bunch of animals around me. I have some responsibilities with those animals. But you know, as I'm sure we all experienced during COVID, those days got long. You know, you weren't working. You were up at 5 in the morning sometimes, and you're like, man, I'm not tired. I'm not going to be tired until 10 o'clock at night. I need to fill my day with a little bit of structure. So, you know, the structure of meditation and breakfast and making tea or coffee was huge. And then by the time it got to like 10 or 11, I was like, okay, what do I do now? What are my targets? What are my goals? And I just kind of thought, well, if I can talk about what's been helping me, that whatever, I watched this film and it was great, or I got into Lego, or I listened to this album and it was really fun, it will be me reaching out into this great void and seeing if anyone else is like, you know, having the same experience that I'm having. So it was a great source of comfort for me too. I think maybe it proved a little kind of proof of concept thing to the podcast guys to be able to say, oh well, if we add Billy into that Dis thing, which I did a couple of times, then we can see what the podcast is, you know. So yeah, it was a really fun thing. Hopefully everyone out there listens to the Friendship Bunion. I say it's a shameless plug here, and I say it every so often, but like, you know, this is a strange industry in which it needs to be constantly growing, and as soon as you plateau, then the company that you work with is like, well, you were doing this, and now you're kind of doing this, and we get to a point where we just can't do it anymore. So the beast has to be fed,
Right.
which is a cynical thing, but we have to consistently get more and more subscribers. So if you guys love the podcast and you want us to keep doing it, the way for us to keep doing it is to just consistently get more and more subscribers. So you guys will do that for us. So, yes, exactly. So thank you for that. Great question. I think, you know, the grog that Mary and Pippin drink when we're like passed out and the Uruk-hai like feeding us grog and stuff, that I believe was prune juice and some sort of fizzy soda that was made to go flat. So it was like heavily sugared but so thick at the same time. That's not got out there really yet. So I mean, obviously we were in and out of Wet to Digital, and they would show us these incredible programs like Massive, which was developed by Wet to, you know, crowd stuff. So we saw that in its infancy, and then obviously watched it with Helm's Deep and watched it with the Ride of the Rohirrim and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, when we go to New Zealand, usually we'll go in and out of Wet to Physical and Wet to Digital once or twice, and they'll generally show us like, ooh, check it out, this is what we're doing now.
Doing it live?
Yeah, I mean, we did pitch that to those guys. Obviously, they don't have us, you know, getting the four of us together is difficult outside of these conventions and stuff. Initially, you know, years ago, I had said to Elijah, do you want to do a podcast together? And Elijah's like, I'm not sure if I'm kind of going to jump into the podcast world. And then from there, obviously, you know, it became something that Billy was into. The only reason why I asked Elijah first was because Elijah listened to podcasts, Billy really didn't, and then, you know, Billy started doing it. But I think we'll always have Elijah and Sean coming back with an open invitation. Maybe we'll do some sort of Christmassy thing. The other thing is like a lot of times people online are like, why have you not invited Orlando? Why have you not invited Liv? Or we've invited all of them. They all have an open invitation. So it's not as if we've selected and said we don't want these people. Everyone has been invited. Lots of people are busy. Lots of people don't want to do it. That's fine. It's up to them. But they've all been invited.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's all right, I have a quick answer. I stopped watching the last halfway through season 2, so I'm the wrong person to ask. You've got to ask JJ or David Lindelof. I
He
didn't
couldn't
write
watch
it.
the end, he was dead at the time.
Yeah, I didn't write it. That's like asking Huckleberry Finn, you know, what does Mark Twain's work mean? Like, he's a fictional character.